United States overt and overt involvement in Syria is a major reason for all of this violence in that country. The fact of the matter is the Security Council has not authorized anything that the United States is doing there. There is no congressional declaration of war between the United States and Syria. We don't even have the cover of a so-called congressional authorization to use military force in that country, and yet we're there, and the Turks are there, both in contravention of international law. The fact is that if the United States is seriously interested in de-escalating the violence in that country, it needs to completely withdraw from that country, and it needs to ensure that there is no covert support of any kind going to any of these ISIS or Al-Qaeda, Takfiri, Daesh, or type organizations that have been imported by the United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey into that country illegally for the express purpose of overthrowing a sovereign regime. This gets back to what Vladimir Putin was talking about in 2007 at his Munich conference, when he stated that the basic issue in international relations today is getting back to respect for international law, getting back to respect for the sovereignty of individual countries in the international community. He identified the United States as the chief malefactor, the chief violator of these principles. I painfully have to conclude that he is correct. Until the U.S. gets out of Syria with any of its military forces, until the U.S. and Saudi Arabia and Israel and the Gulf Cooperation Council states and Turkey stop their support of these Takfiri extremists in that country, the violence is going to continue. I have a recommendation for General Mattis. Do all of these things, including getting the United States completely out of Syria, and then let Vladimir Putin assist the Syrian Arab army in mopping up the floor with these people.
The instructors and laying out what it says was an elaborate, CIA-backed plot to assassinate Kim Jong-un. North Korea is claiming to be the victim of state-sponsored terrorism from the White House. The assertion comes as the U.S. is considering putting the North back on its list of terror sponsors. But the vitriolic outrage over the alleged plan to assassinate Kim last month is also being doled out with an unusually big dollop of retaliation threats, raising a familiar question: what on earth is going on in Pyongyang? North Korea's state-run media announced Sunday that an ethnic Korean man with U.S. citizenship was intercepted 2 days ago by authorities for unspecified hostile acts against the country. He was identified as Kim Hak-song, an employee of the Pyongyang University of Science and Technology. That came just days after the North announced the detention of an accounting instructor at the same university, Kim Sang-duk, also a U.S. citizen, for acts of hostility aimed to overturn the country. Their workplace is North Korea's only privately funded university and has a large number of foreign teachers, including Americans. What connection, if any, the arrests have to the alleged plot is unknown. But they bring to fore the number of U.S. citizens now known to be in custody in the North. Obviously this is concerning, White House spokesman Sean Spicer told reporters Monday. We are well aware of it, and we are going to work through the Embassy of Sweden, through our State Department to seek the release of the individuals there. Sweden handles U.S. consular affairs in North Korea, including those of American detainees. The others are Otto Warmbier, serving a 15-year prison term with hard labor for alleged anti-state acts. He allegedly tried to steal a propaganda banner at his tourist hotel, in Kim Dong-chul, serving a 10-year term with hard labor for alleged espionage. The reported arrest of another Mr. Kim, the North Korean man allegedly at the center of the assassination plot, is more ominous. According to state media reports that began Friday, he is a Pyongyang resident who was ideologically corrupted and bribed by the CIA and South Korea's National Intelligence Service while working in the timber industry in Siberia in 2014. The Russian Far East is one of the main places where North Korean laborers are allowed to work abroad. The reports say Kim, his full name has not been provided, was converted into a terrorist full of repugnance and revenge against the supreme leadership of North Korea and collaborated in an elaborate plot to assassinate Kim Jong-un at a series of events, including a major military parade, that were held last month. They allege Kim was in frequent contact through satellite communications with the murderous demons of the NIS and CIA, who instructed him to use a biochemical substance that is the know-how of the CIA, and that the hardware, supplies and funds would be borne by the South Korean side. Kim Jong-un attended the military parade on 15 April and made several other appearances around that time to mark the anniversary of his late grandfather's birthday. The initial reports of the plot concluded with a vow by the Ministry of State Security to ferret out to the last one the organizers, conspirators and followers of the plot, which it called state-sponsored terrorism. The North Korean reports also said a Korean-style anti-terrorist attack would begin immediately. Follow-up stories on the plot have focused on outraged North Koreans demanding revenge. It's anyone's guess what a Korean-style attack might entail. North Korea is known for its loud and belligerent rhetoric in the face of what it deems to be threats to its leadership, and the reference to ferreting out anyone involved in the plot could suggest not only action abroad but possible purges or crackdowns at home. I wonder if Kim Jong-un has become paranoid about the influence Americans are having on North Koreans, and about the possibility of U.S. action against him, said Bruce Bennett, a senior defense analyst and North Korea expert at the Rand Corporation. Will Kim increase his internal purges of North Korean elites? Will he focus on North Korean defectors, people who the regime would like to silence? Or will he do both? Tensions between North Korea and its chief adversaries, the U.S. and South Korea, have been rising over Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs, as well as joint U.S.-South Korean military exercises that include training for a possible decapitation strike to kill the North's senior leaders. Bennett noted that such training has been included and expanded upon in annual war games hosted by South Korea, which were bigger than ever this year. The war games, called Key Resolve, Faux Legal, just finished, without any signs of North Korean retaliation. But the current rhetoric from Pyongyang has a somewhat familiar ring to it. Case in point, the movie The Interview in 2014. In June that year, the North denounced the Seth Rogen comedy, which portrays the assassination of Kim Jong-un for the CIA by two American journalists, as a most wanton act of terror and act of war. A few months later, hackers broke into Sony Pictures Entertainment's computers and released thousands of emails, documents, social security numbers and other personal information in an attempt to derail the movie's release. The U.S. government blamed North Korea for the attack. Pyongyang denies involvement, but has praised the hackers. The North's claims of a plot to kill Kim Jong-un with a biochemical agent also have an eerie similarity to the assassination of his estranged half-brother, Kim Jong-nam, at an airport lobby in Malaysia in February. In that attack, seen by many as orchestrated by the North, two young women who were allegedly tricked into thinking they were taking part in a television game show, rubbed the deadly VX nerve agent onto the face of the unsuspecting victim, who died soon after.
North Korea's satellites in place for devastating EMP attack on us. North Korea is planning to wipe out large parts of U.S. heartland and already has satellites in position for attack, an expert has shockingly claimed. The U.S. has moved nuclear bombers and their war fleet, the USS Carl Vinson, to the Korean peninsula ahead of any potential conflict and to increase pressure on the North. This was after their leader, Kim Jong-un, threatened to fire a nuclear missile at U.S. heartland. But a power grid expert claims North Korean missile activity could be to plan for a devastating EMP attack. Task Force on National and Homeland Security Executive Director Peter Vincent Price said, "I think what they are mainly going for is the unhardened electric grid, transportation, communications, all of the other civilian critical infrastructure that we depend upon to keep our population alive." North Korea has already fired 2 satellites into orbit, and if a nuclear payload has been attached to these, then they have the capability to launch an attack. If an EMP was successful, it could plunge the U.S. into a doomsday apocalypse scenario. Mr. Pry added, they are positioning themselves as sort of a nuclear missile age, cyber age version of the battleship diplomacy. Then if a crisis comes up and if we decide to attack North Korea, Kim Jong-un can threaten our president and say, well, don't do that because we are going to burn your whole country down. Which is basically what he said. He has made threats about turning the United States into ashes, and he connected the satellite program to this in public statements to deter us from attacking. A former advisor for Ronald Reagan claimed North Korea could launch a devastating joint EMP attack with Iran. And former CIA Chief James Woolsey named EMP attacks as the most dangerous threat to the U.S. from the north. I was in a black hole. U.S. citizen held in North Korea breaks silence on horrifying ordeal. A U.S. citizen detained in North Korea for 6 months has opened up about his harrowing treatment while held captive in the totalitarian regime. Jeffrey Fowle has revealed he feels lucky to be alive after he was arrested by Kim Jong-un's henchmen in front of his family at Pyongyang airport. The 58-year-old devout Christian traveled to the repressive communist state in 2014 because the country intrigued him. He arranged the trip with British-owned firm Koryo Tours, hoping to spread the word of God and satisfy his curiosity of the secretive nation. But the father of 3 made a grave error that would land him in hot water with Pyongyang authorities. At a nightclub in the city of Gongjinan, Fowle hid a Bible under a toilet bin in the hope that a fellow Christian might one day find it. But Fowle was seriously mistaken. He was immediately arrested and moved to a heavily guarded guest house, where he was cooped up for 23 hours a day. While in custody, Fowle said he was in an information black hole and was repeatedly met with silence when he pleaded with guards to release him. Eventually he was forced to sign a statement of guilt, and made to write it over and over, admitting to stashing the Bible in the loose. In 2014, Fowle was free after the U.S. government negotiated his release through the Swedish embassy. When he arrived at an air base in Ohio, Fowle said he felt like he was walking on a cloud when he greeted his family. He accuses the firm he traveled with, Korea International Travel Company, of herding tourists through the country. He said Tony Hall, a former U.S. ambassador, was crucial in securing his release. Hall told Fox News, I advise anyone planning personal travel to North Korea to seriously reconsider their plans. Fowle spoke out about his ordeal as North Korea has captured 4 U.S. citizens amid fears of a hostage situation. U.S. citizen Kim Hak-song worked at the Pyongyang University of Science and Technology and was detained by Kim's police yesterday, North Korean media claimed. 3 other U.S. citizens are currently held in North Korea, including Otto Warmbier, who was arrested for tearing down a poster.
U.S. issues warning to China over threatening Navy patrols. There is no change in policy. The U.S. has issued a veiled threat to China over its claim to disputed territories in the Pacific. U.S. Navy Admiral Scott Swift told China the Trump administration will not take its gaze off the hotly contested South China Sea territory. Tensions between the two military superpowers has threatened to spill over into all-out conflict in the contested region. Allies of the U.S. including the Philippines, Taiwan, and Malaysia have all made competing claims for land. U.S. warships including aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson have been patrolling the territory to ensure the safety of allies. But since the election of Donald Trump,